grade 5s. We are going to be doing a little chemistry experiment here today. This is my assistant, Professor Marcus, and I am, of course, Mr. W. So it's a very simple experiment that you can try at home in your own kitchen. We have a large plate, we have a bowl, we have two smaller bowls here. One contains cornstarch, just a tablespoon of cornstarch. One contains a tablespoon of salt or white sugar. In this case, we are using sugar. And then I've got two, yes, you're not going to eat the sugar because one of the big rules in science experiments is we don't eat the experiment. We have two regular size or two identical cups with warm water about half filled. So, Professor Marcus, and yes, thank you. We have this is just a coffee filter, a regular coffee filter that your parents might use when they make coffee. So we're going to put, let's start with the sugar, into the water. What is your prediction? What do you think will happen when the sugar goes in the water?
I think one of them might have a reaction, or both of them.
A reaction? Okay. So let's just scoop that into the water. Turn the spoon this way, maybe. Okay. Don't do anything with that yet. We'll just put that aside. And now let's do the cornstarch. Oh, we'll clean that up after. Turn the spoon this way. Okay, that's good. I will ask you to stir them. Sure, go ahead and stir that.
The big cup at the very...
Stir it around really well. Keep stirring.
The very big one at the very bottom, look.
Okay, keep stirring then until it's stirred up really well.
It looks like milk.
Let me give it a quick...
Is that milk?
You're correct. That does look like milk. I'm just going to rinse off my spoon.
Can we mix them together?
And no, you won't be mixing them together. Stir this one up for me, please.
This one makes sugar water.
Keep stirring. We need to make that sugar disappear. And give it a quick stir. All right. So, you're right, this one does look quite milky. If it stays milky like this for a long period of time, it's called a colloid, okay?
Explain with them.
But if after a little while, and we'll come back to it, we see the powder at the bottom and the water at the top, then that would be called a suspension. And this, yeah, kind of like suspension bridge. And this one, we see that it just looks like water, so that one we call
it sugar water.
It is sugar water, but we call it a solution. So that's part one of our experiment. We'll let this one sit for a little bit to see if there are any changes. And then we're going to talk about what are some ways we could possibly separate these mixtures. So we want to try to separate this one back into cornstarch and water, and this one back into sugar and water. Oh, we're on. Welcome back, scientists. You can see it's a little bit of time has elapsed. My beard is a little bit longer. Professor Marcus is a little bit older.
Daddy.
Shh, you're not supposed to reveal our secret identities. Anyway, back to the experiment. You can see that the sugar water is looking pretty much the same as before. It just looks like water. Yeah, you can't see the sugar, so it's a solution. It's dissolved. So here is the before and after picture of the cornstarch water mixture. You could see that in the before picture here, it's much milkier. It's more opaque, doesn't let much light through. And in the after picture, we could see that it's a more clear solution. We see light coming through, and if you look really closely at the bottom, you see that the cornstarch has settled on the bottom. So we call this a suspension. Let's look at the sugar water. We are going to try to separate the water and the sugar by, just hang on, Evaporation. That's the best way to separate a solution. So Professor Marcus is going to carefully pour out the solution onto the plate. Oh, we don't need to touch it. And the reason why we're doing it on the plate is because it
smells like cookies.
Smells like cookies. If it's spread out like this over a large surface area, then it will evaporate quicker, but we still might have to wait a few days. So stay tuned for part 2. All right.
Can I have that afterwards? Then the experiments are just
Repeat after me. We don't eat our science experiments.
I don't know if we repeat it. Daddy.
All right. For this one, secret identity, remember? We're going to pour out a little bit of the... Okay, thank you. We need to pour out the water without letting the cornstarch come out. So this is what we call decanting. So we carefully... So I pour out most of it, and when I see that the cornstarch is about to come out, I can still see it on the bottom there. I'm just going to swish it around a little bit. If we look in here, we see it's pretty much just water. Now, Professor Marcus, I will need your help. You are going to pour the rest of that through the filter paper.
It's not draining.
It will. It will just take a little bit of time. All right, so we got the rest of the suspension liquid into the coffee paper. You could see that we got everything out of the cup. And you can see it takes a little bit of paper to, or a little bit of time, I should say, to filter. So you can see it's dripping out. But we do have kind of a mucky mess there in the filter paper. We'll come back in a couple minutes once this is all filtered through. All right, it's been about 10 minutes or so, and we have let the water filter through the filter paper. So you can see that there's kind of a mushy mix of cornstarch and water. And so to do the final separation, we are just going to let that evaporate, just like our sugar water solution is going to evaporate. So we're going to let this sit for a few days, and then we will resume with part 2. Right, Professor Marcus? Professor Marcus? Where's Professor Marcus, that crazy little scientist? He's probably up to some crazy experiment. I better go get him. Please note, no Professor Marcuses were harmed in the making of this video. Thank you for watching.